Space gets shattered on Xbox, Windows 11 24H2 arrives, and we say goodbye to the HoloLens. Happy Friday, friends! It is Friday. It is the first week in October. I don't know why I'm so excited about being the first week in October, but it is October on this end of the microphone. I guess it depends on when you listen to this, but either way, it is October. I'm hoping everybody had a wonderful week because there was a lot going on. The tech news was very heavy from the Microsoft side. Xbox looks like they did something right, and so there is just a lot to dig into. So here we go. Tech news. Let's kicking it off with HoloLens 2. So HoloLens 2 is Microsoft said, hey, we're no longer making that $3,500 headset, and we're kind of we're moving away from that platform. And so Microsoft has also wound down their mixed reality platform for those headsets, made by like HP and many other platforms. And it seems like Microsoft is kind of moving away from the AR, VR mixed reality space. And so yeah, that's kind of big news because at the end of the day, Microsoft was a big pioneer in like the HoloLens and kind of space, right? They had a name, but apparently they weren't making any money. And that space never really blew up in a way that I think Microsoft really found it tangible, right? And so, yeah, it looks like they're ending support. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if they're keeping like maybe a small skunkworks team around, because in the most Microsoft fashion possible, the thing that would happen is like Microsoft, shuts all this down and then VR glasses become a reality and Microsoft is once again missing out on this massive market. So hopefully they're keeping some people on to try to figure out like if there is a future and like their skunkworks and R&D side. And so we'll wait and see. Obviously Microsoft is betting heavily on AI and not so much VR. So Microsoft is not missing out on that. Now, this does kind of hit near and dear to my heart for people who have followed this channel for many years. This headline, for people who haven't followed HoloLens like I have, this was probably one of the biggest scoops of my journalism career when I was doing that. I put this like right up there with the Xbox Series S leak, but this was like more true journalism rather than being in the right place at the right time with the Xbox Series S, because I was the first person to report. So there was actually, yes, we think of HoloLens 2 as a device that they're canceling and ending, but there was actually like another HoloLens 2, and this is actually really HoloLens 3, but we won't get into those details. And I was the one that broke the news that Microsoft was skipping a generation to and not ship a device. There was other platforms around this time. What's the one that, gosh, it actually grabbed, I can't even think of it. Gosh, there's another VR headset. I cannot think of the name. Let's see if Google can do this for me. Let's try Copilot. You know what? Let's try Copilot. Copilot. What is the name? Magic Leap. I didn't even need to get to finish Copilot things. There, somebody was probably screaming at their either YouTube channel screen or their podcast, but there was Magic Leap, right? There was a time where Magic Leap was grabbing a lot of headlines and Microsoft was super scared, and the Magic Leap just kind of fizzled into nothing. And so Microsoft had a go, no go decision about shipping like a HoloLens 1.5. And they said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to take the bet that Magic Leap can't get it together. And so we are going to, shut that down. We're going to wait a few more years and ship what we now know as officially HoloLens 2. And so, yeah, this one's near and dear to the heart. And goodbye, HoloLens, at least for now as we know it. So we salute you. We kind of wish you would have done more. But at the end of the day, the market just wasn't there for it. So I don't know. Maybe Microsoft wasn't good enough. Maybe they never got it figured out. We'll see. Who knows? Here we are. So the biggest news in the world of Windows this week was 24H2 is now available for non-Copilot PCs, and also there's going to be new features coming to Copilot Plus PCs, which that name still just right into the lobes of the brain, doesn't it? Whatever. Anyway, so for people who don't have an NPU and don't have one of those fancy Copilot Plus branded PCs, you're going to get some energy saver stuff, Bluetooth, low energy audio support, Wi-Fi 7 compatibility, which is probably actually a pretty big deal for some people. HDR background support are the kind of the big highlights. But the real stuff is going to be coming over to the people who have those Copilot Plus PCs. Now, there's Windows recall, which we all know about. There is a bit of a jaded history. Microsoft's, hey, it's now secure. It's better than ever, and you're going to love it, and it's going to be great. And if you have an Intel or AMD device, it'll come next month. But for people who have the ARM devices, it's effectively going to be coming very, very soon. So sometime this month, probably through the Insider. Then there is Click to Do, which might be the worst name or the most Microsoft name ever, but this is a response to Google's Circle to Search. So it puts like a contextual layer into snipping tool and allows you to extract information like what the image is, pull those things out and turn them into like a visual search query. And so, yeah, there's also Photos is getting a new super resolution scaling. And also probably the coolest thing, honestly, is this right here, which is generative fill is coming to Paint. So Paint is, growing on up at the end of the day. And so these things are shipping here in the near future with 24H2 for Copilot Plus branded PCs. I'm trying to fight off a yawn there and not have to edit and post. So I do these things late at night on a Thursday after my family goes to bed. So just cut me a little slack now. Cut me just a smidgen of slack. Now, other things that are going to be coming to, well, I should say other things that are blocking 24H2. So just because you might want 24H2, there are things that are actually blocking 24H2 from coming to your device. So it fits certain fingerprint sensors, some wallpaper applications. Full disclaimer, Stardock makes one called Deskscapes, and Deskscapes should not be a blocker. We've updated it a long time ago to be compliant with 24H2. And there's also some smart sound technology drivers from Intel, and all these things could be blocking you, dear listener, from getting 24H2 onto your device at the end of the day. Now, if you don't want recall, maybe these blockers are fantastic, because I know recall, we'll see what happens there. I'm pretty sure recall is off by default. It's opt-in sort of thing. So recall, but we all know Microsoft will eventually be like, and then flip that switch and be like, oh, sorry, everybody gets recall. Hope you all like it. Kumbaya, everybody's good. So there you go. Office 2024 is now available. So if you don't want Office 365, you just want to pay one time, it's $149 for home, $249 for business. So if you don't want to pay the subscription stuff, there you go. Microsoft is also going to be investing $4.3 billion into Italy to build AI infrastructure. I think this is going to be the new narrative. A lot for Microsoft, building out all these data centers in localized regions so that they are compliant with demographics and the laws and like the EUs and all the regulatory governments in each locale. So they're going to be looking at their select markets and be like, look, we're going to invest billions to bring AI and capability onshore for these demographics, so and regions around the world. And also, Bing is expanding their generative search results. You've seen this in Google a lot now. Bing does it as well, and they're bringing it to more search queries and other things else. Also, speaking of Google, Google's now putting ads next to its generative stuff. Shocking, 0.0% of listeners. Now, on to the gaming news, because there was some like heavy hitting gaming news. First off, Shattered Space has come out, and Shattered Space has shattered low expectations for reviews on Steam. So this is not good. This is not a good look for Xbox or Microsoft or everybody else working on it. So Shattered Space released their first DLC, and it is mostly negative, and it feels more like Shallow Space. And it's hard to tell, right? Steam reviews are not the be all and end all of everything. But when it's getting review bombed and it's not going over well, which is not good for the future of that game, which was one of their most ambitious, something that was super hyped up, a lot of money invested. And Microsoft is trying to find ways to recover that. And yeah. So, you feel for the people that put all that effort in and had a lot of different feedback, and I'm sure, right, they got to ship it on time. Like Shattered Space, Starfield was already delayed, remember? And so they had more time to work on this DLC, and yeah, here we are. So hopefully they can continue to support the title and get more DLC out in the coming months or years or whatever that rectify the situation. But right now, out of the gate, that's not a great start. Also, Xbox Network had a case of the Mondays this week. It did go down for an extended period of time, but also Verizon went down this week, and so did PlayStation. So yeah. It wasn't just Microsoft. It was kind of a weird coincidence, all these big brands having issues like this. Other things that are happening is that Microsoft has started asking devs why they're skipping Xbox. This feels like a question that should have been asked, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But either way, Microsoft is doing some research. They're finally trying to figure it out. Why aren't devs coming to it? And yeah, I get it, it's the best day to do it was 10 years ago. The second best day is obviously today, sort of thing, right? Like planting a tree. But either way, they're doing it. So, yeah. Also, other headlines making the rounds this week. The PS5 Pro did not like instantly sell out. One, it's just really bad news for scalpers because we know some percentage of that population was bought up by people who were slamming them on eBay for like 10 grand or something dumb like that. Which really just kind of brings up the questions like, was Xbox right, like, for not doing this? Because if PlayStation Pro is not selling out immediately, that means like either one of two things is true. Potentially both are true. One, the demand was low and people are like, like this generation is still not really here. Some PS4 is fine or my PS5 is fine. I don't need something better to play the same games with slightly better graphics. That is a possibility. Two, the pricing just might be a massive turnoff. And so with the pricing that high, maybe that's just, they're hitting the ceiling of what console gamers are willing to pay for a console. But either way, the console did not immediately blow out the doors with demand. And so maybe that justifies what Xbox is doing. Xbox is sitting there going like, they invested a lot of money to build the PS5 Pro. And are they going to make it all back? Probably. I mean, Sony, I don't want Sony to do poorly on this thing. I want Sony to continue to be strong and robust so that way Xbox can't become lazy and pull in the Internet Explorer. For those of you who get that reference, your knees probably creak when you stand up. But either way, it did not sell out. Other things like this felt like a finally, like there was a genuine ad for Game Pass and Call of Duty, and they're talking about Black Ops. Like, I don't know why Microsoft isn't screaming this from the top. Call of Duty is arguably one of the top, if not the top, first-person shooters on the planet Earth. And so, like, hey, why aren't you advertising this with Xbox and Game Pass and going? Why am I not seeing this everywhere? Well, here you go. Now you finally have your first commercial for Game Pass and Call of Duty all in the same thing. And so they're trying here. They're trying. I don't know why that video was supposed to loop, but it didn't. They're trying, right? At least they've got one. So maybe that'll finally boost those numbers, right? You gotta create demand or put out some demand gen. So at the end of the day, at least there is one out there. And yes. So all right, let's jump into the questions of the week, which are always my favorite part. All right, Ross with the first question says, and this is a great question, by the way. Back in January of this year, Incase announced that it was going to bring Microsoft accessories, mice, keyboard, mouse, headset, and all that stuff to Incase designed by Microsoft line. And it was supposed to launch in the vague time frame of 2024 with my beloved old Sculpt ergonomic mouse starting to have some button clicking issues and needing replacing. Have you heard anything about when we might see these products actually hit the market? No, I have not. This is actually a very good question because it kind of just fell off everybody's radar, mine included, but I do know who to ask. So I am going to ask, and maybe I will have an update by next week about what is going on here with all this stuff. Oh, Mr. PKI coming in with a double dose of questions as he likes to do. One thing I forgot to point out on the gaming side. So Jay Allard has joined Panos over at Amazon. And Mr. PKI says, does this mean we'll soon see a Fire Zune, a Fire Courier to compete with Apple? This is an interesting one. So a lot of the headlines around Jay Allard where like Xbox co-founder joins Amazon. Now, Jay Allard is a well-respected individual. He's done a lot of great things. I'm definitely not discounting him joining Amazon. However, a lot of people from Microsoft, current, future, and past and present, have joined Amazon. And joining Panos is an interesting timeline. The thing is like Amazon isn't exactly known for this robot. Microsoft could fall into this category too, so you got to bite your tongue a little bit. Other than like Xbox, maybe some Surface stuff, right? I'm using Surface Book 3. They're not really known for like these like Apple-esque or even Pixel-esque like hardware, especially on Amazon, right? You've got little speakers and other little trinkets and things. And I'm not saying they're not cool and technically sound, but it's like a different, like, I don't see Amazon building like an Xbox, right? I don't see them building a game console. I don't see them building a Fire tablet foldable. Like that doesn't really fit. And maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't really fit like the Amazon narrative. So I'll be curious to see. I mean, Panos has been at Amazon now. Granted, taking a device, just if you're going to ballpark, like how long does it take from like, I'm going to build a device to I'm going to ship a device on the retail market? 3 years. Like just think that is like the respected timeline. You could do it in a little bit less, but like if you want to ship something for Christmas in like 2 years, like you're probably already behind. You got to think about, you got to build the product. You got to get into manufacturing. You got to get manufacturing time. time. If you need chips, you got to get on the wait list to get the chips made and all that sort of stuff. So like think 3 years. So if Jay Allard is joining and they're spinning up something new, it's several years out. But Amazon isn't really one who does things like that far out unless it's like AWS sort of stuff. So we will see. Mr. PK with the second question, he says, we saw that HoloLens has been killed off. Do you think that Meta will dominate the market, or will Apple have a V2 Vision Pro that will revive the whole space? So there's a couple competitors that are worth mentioning, right? There's Magic Leap is still around. I don't quite know what their current status is. There's also Xreal, which I have a pair of their glasses here. Then there's the Meta glasses, which you can't buy, but are at least coming. And I think Apple will eventually get there. The Vision Pro, I think, is along the lines like the PS5 Pro. It doesn't seem like it's selling super duper well. Now, granted, the Vision Pro is way up there and has been this like hero product of something they're building towards. But it doesn't seem like it's moved the needle in any sort of massive way or changed the paradigm for like how we compute on a daily basis. So I think Apple will get there. I think Google has been there. So if it's very dangerous to make tech predictions because almost universally you're wrong. But there's a couple things we can bet on here. I think that Google, Apple, and Meta will be strong players in this segment. With Snap, right? Snapchat, but Snap, like they build some glasses. They might, if they can survive and find new markets and new revenue streams, they might be a competitor. We'll see what happens with Microsoft. Microsoft has the budget to do this sort of thing. I don't know what their technical expertise is at this point to build, like actual, like we all know what we want. Like it's not hard to describe. It's like, give me a pair of Ray-Bans that have this, they look like normal sunglasses, but like right in front of my eye sockets. That's what everybody is looking forward to. We'll get there eventually. Meta showed off what's possible if there is no such thing as a budget, and we know that Apple was doing a lot of that stuff too, again, if there's no such thing as a budget. So it'll be time. One of the things that seems that people do agree on is that these glasses will eventually replace your phones. I don't know. That sounds plausible. I wear sunglasses when I drive my car, but like, what about when you do drive your car? Like, you shouldn't have these things on. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. Drosan says, Brad, there was no Surface hardware announced this fall with Windows 24 H2. Does that mean we're not getting any? I think if you listen to last week, it's like, I haven't heard of any new devices coming online. The only thing that potentially would make sense, I can't hold it up because there's screws on it. Well, maybe I can. Is this guy, like the Surface Pro, that's a Duo on there, but a Surface Pro with updated Intel chips would plausibly make sense, right? Like you get your Intel chips and stuff, so maybe that comes later. That would be exciting. I don't know. But I'm not expecting everything I've heard from Surface, by the way, is like non-exciting form factors. We're doubling down on things that we know that will sell, so you can't see it again. I'm like surrounded by Surface hardware now that I talk about this enough. Like, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's a Surface Studio, an OG Surface Studio. This thing, it used to be if you've watched this podcast for a long time, it was behind me. It was the one that played the screensaver. That's sitting right next to me. So I like Surface hardware. I hope they continue to make this stuff. It serves me well. So hopefully it can turn used to serve everyone else well. Sydney 2K says, hello, Brad. Now we're into fall. Did you do anything new or different to beat the summer's heat? No, compared to last year. Last year was so much more fun from a personal perspective, only because we went to a bunch of national parks. Last summer, we went in July, we went to California, where we went to Yosemite, we went to Sequoia, and we went to Kings Canyon. And that was how we beat the heat, because, right, you're up at elevation, so you're technically beating the heat. But no, this summer was a lot of not doing that. We did go up to northern Michigan, which is absolutely beautiful. But the reason being is actually next summer, we're going to go to Glacier National Park. And just the way, if you've ever done national parks, here's your pro tip for your insider tip of the week. If you're ever going to a national park and you want to stay in the national park, I mean, legitimately, like not next to, but like in the national park at one of the national park hotels, you have to book that a year out. And you also kind of have to pay for it a year out. Like they charge you like half of it up front. So we're going to go next July, I believe. And so this past July, I had to pay for next year's thing. And like the timing of all this stuff just didn't work out. So no, nothing too exciting other than watching my grass wilt, which I've now overseeded and replaced. And it is looking green, luscious, and healthy. Much like I hope all of you are. Maybe not green, but luscious and healthy is what I hope everybody listening to this. I don't know how I'm trying to spin that into an outro, but luscious and healthy. I hope you all are luscious and healthy. Either way, That wraps it up for this week, guys. Like I said, there was a lot going on. Windows is firing on some cylinders. They're getting stuff out the door, although that is a staged rollout, so it will take some time. But either way, my friends, as always, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this podcast is me.